What's up, everybody? I am back. I know it's been a little while since I posted a video. I've gotten real busy in my personal life on a few different things. Kind of got tied up a little bit there, was out of town for about 2 weeks. Then I came back, and it's just been nonstop busyness, which I'm sure anybody who's married and has kids knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? So I hadn't been able to put any videos together in a little while, but did want to put this one together today. You know, there's been a lot of jokes out there about, did the Jasmy team put a gag order on the ambassadors because now they're not talking? No, there is no gag order. The funny thing is, I think all of us have just been sort of waiting for, like, what's the next thing? And the next thing finally happened last night at roughly about 1 a.m. here. I think it was 3 or 4 p.m. Japanese time Friday, because they're a day ahead of me. I'm here in Eastern time zone, U.S. So it was about the middle of the night for me. I actually went to bed at about 9:30, woke up at 12:30, did the call, stayed up until about 3, went back to bed, and then woke up at 6. So not the best night of sleep, but overall, definitely worth it. But I wanted to kick off the video, kind of going through the feed as I always have, a couple things have transpired that I kind of wanted to touch on. It's not just the ambassador call. That's going to be the bulk of this video, but there's a few other things that happened as well. One of them actually is not, I don't think I have it here in the feed, and it was the day of the volume spike. So if you follow Jasmy and you follow the chart, we had a volume spike. I'm looking right about here. So that's September 21st. Today is 29th, about 8 days ago. Had this spike in volume. Tons of volume, right? Not a whole lot of movement on the chart, just kind of mainly sideways, a little bit positive. And a lot of people were wondering, what is going on here with the Jasmy chart on those days, right? And so my theory is this. On those exact same days, the company that was hired to be a market maker for Jasmy just happened to move some Jasmy coins. Now, the coins that they moved don't directly coincide with the move that happened here. However, the interesting part of this, I was telling Dip Metaverse, because he tracks all this in his spreadsheet, right, is just because a company was paid in Jasmy doesn't mean those are the exact coins that are going to move. So if you think about it, if you were the market maker, right, you're a company that has been hired by a cryptocurrency project to improve the overall value, to build up the market cap, right? That's why you're brought in. What's unique about crypto is that anybody can see your transactions that you're performing because of Etherscan, right? Because of the ledger, we can follow every single thing. So would you want somebody to be able to track you exactly for every move you make? Probably not, right? So just because some of the coins are moving here, they could be moving over there in a different coin, as long as the value, if you think about it, is 1-to-1, right? So it's almost like a bit of a sleight of hand magic trick. And so what it tells me is when you have a significant volume, but you don't necessarily spike up, and it's almost sort of implies wash trading, which means the buyer and the seller are the same entity. Now, wash trading is a bad thing if it's not disclosed, right? It's misleading. But if you say ahead of time that, hey, we've hired a market maker, they're here to build the market, that's technically what they do, is wash trading, but we're disclosing it ahead of time. We're not going to disclose it real time, but we're disclosing it ahead of time, then that's sort of accepted, right? And that's not just in the crypto world. I mean, this is all throughout the stock market, every day, all day. There are tons and tons of market makers, okay? So going back to the day of the volume spike, my hunch is that this was actually DWF Labs getting things started here for the first time with Jasmy. Now, I would say that this is probably going to be the only time I'm going to comment on this, because I would prefer to let them just sort of do their thing. And if they can build up the value over time, which is what they say they can do, then that's a good thing for all of us who are invested in the project. So I just wanted to show, if I go over to Etherscan, this was roughly about 8 days ago, we had some movement of those 100,000 Jasmy coins that were tied to DWF Labs that just happened to be the exact same day of the volume spike. So now I know not everybody's going to believe me on that, but that is my theory, because sideways trading with a lot of volume tells me it's either a market maker or it's market manipulation. And in this case, I think it's probably the market maker. All right, moving on from there. So this was the last video I posted here way back on September 1st, right? It's been a dry month here for the channel. So going back to the first, I said Jasmy chain, all you need to know, and basically kind of broke it down in a spreadsheet, really kind of how I see this thing working, with the utility value being on the Jasmy chain as opposed to where Jasmy coin is now on Ethereum. Highly recommend, if you really want to know what's going on or what's probably going to happen into the future, take a look at that video. It really has a lot of implications that kind of came full circle in the call last night. And I'll get to that in a minute. Now, moving up from there. This is just kind of funny. I mentioned, I like telling jokes on this channel. If I ever post that I'm going to Burning Man, remind me to turn the car around and go back home, right? I don't know if you all saw at the beginning of the month, Burning Man, complete mess. It's like this festival here in the West, in the USA, where they just light everything on fire and they try to say it's for, for green, I don't know, to raise awareness about being green, but then you're burning and releasing all these carbons of, treated lumber. Whatever. I don't know. I don't really get it. But anyway, this year it got rained out, so I'm not going. Moving on up from there. So some token lockup questions. Tycho had brought these up, that my understanding, Jasmy lockup is hinged on companies willing to lock up said token in exchange for increased benefits. Yes, the development of the wallet that uses DD Coin, as explained earlier, is well underway. For the purpose of providing this added value, we will ask companies to lock Jasmy. This is the deflationary mechanism. I saw a comment earlier today that said they should add a burning mechanism. They don't really need the burning mechanism. This should take care of it right here, as long as everything goes as planned, right? Within the wallet, to provide rank up services and rewards, we expect everyone to lock up for the purpose of using the platform. This is the utility part, right? The utility part of Jasmy Chain. And I will elaborate on all this in just a few moments, okay? Now, going on up from there, here was a post from Dip Metaverse that he was reading the white paper, screenshotted what I think is a very important paragraph. So key takeaways. Transcosmos partnership is meant to be huge, at least during the first phase of development of the roadmap, right? Transcosmos, if you're not familiar, they are Jasmy's multi-billion-dollar partner, teleworker, call center, contact center, however you want to call it, with offices all over the globe, that's been a partner from day one, right? Give me another startup with a partnership like that from day one, right? Transcosmos has many partners, clients, second photo, which means there should be lots of unique data and many users who can use the PDL. You're onto something there, Dip. And then the reason why Jasmy focused on this partnership so early, 2018, right? Right now it's 2023. So this is a long time. This has been bubbling here, is because they plan to make the contact center secure PC an industry standard. So that's really important. They want to make secure PC an industry standard, whether it be in the Asia region or with secure PC English, right? So it doesn't make sense to make a custom solution for a company with 60,000 employees. I agree 100%. And, sometimes I think people take the approach with things like this, like, well, if that company has so much money, why don't they just build it themselves? Well, they could, but it's probably going to be mediocre because they don't have the expertise, right? Oftentimes, this is kind of like Google, for example. Like you say, well, why doesn't Google just build it themselves? Well, they do, but then they also acquire a lot of companies, right? And then they use those companies to further advance their company. So I think it's oftentimes easier to use a third party than to build a homegrown solution. And usually a homegrown solution is kind of like half-baked, and whoever's involved in developing it usually isn't there long term. Here in the US in particular, developers usually come from India. They come and go, right, on their green card, their visa. They switch companies a lot of times, and there isn't stability at a level that would make sense to create your own homegrown program. You'd be better off getting it from somebody else. And being that this whole COVID remote work, hybrid work, is a bit of a new thing. This is an opportunity that's out there that Secure PC fills that void, right? And so, some of the partners here, I'll go ahead and show this at Dip Metaverse circled. Bandai, Canon, Yamaha, Dyson, Panasonic, Levi's. That's a funny one. Sony, Sony, L'Oreal, Casio, etc. All right. Moving on up from there. Here's a picture of Hara. So the recent Token 2049 event was extremely meaningful for Jasmy. I'm delighted to have gotten to know many projects and VC individuals. Also, I was able to spend quality time with teams projects that have always supported us. So there's a great picture of Hara at Token 2049 right in front of the bar. So hopefully Hara got a drink out of that deal. Maybe a buy one, get one. Probably not as special at this place. Looking at these fancy circle things hanging from the ceiling, there's probably no special there. But anyway, hopefully he got a good drink out of the deal. But Token 2049, I am going to talk about that just a little bit in a minute, not too far in depth, because that was also a topic in the Ambassador call last night. All right, moving on up. An interview with Kakanuma, right? He has been pretty vocal in the Japanese space. So if you look up the regular traditional Jasmy website, Kakanuma is listed as marketing. Now, I don't think he is marketing to blockchain, to crypto people, to investors. No, he is marketing to businesses, to the Japanese, to Asia, for their products offered. Secure PC, right? That's kind of what he is doing in his marketing, and he had a recent interview here on MetaBank JP. So not a whole bunch of detail, anything new on that. I just wanted to bring that up because he kind of pops up again here later, right? And something that I didn't say here was, for anyone suggesting Jasmy isn't progressing fast enough, Jasmy is an extremely serious project building the infrastructure of the next industrial revolution, right? Serious people handpicked by one of the most experienced tech startup management teams in the world, let alone crypto. So Mr. Kakanuma, as of August, we have around 100 people working, including outsourced numbers. 14 of them are from Sony. That's the important part there. That was kind of the big nugget from that article. We also had another partnership announced with Cana Labs. I'm not going to get too far into this. They did a call on this one the other day. It was kind of a little bit hard to follow. Honestly, I kind of have a hard time following the partnership calls because they all relate to Jasmy Chain, and Jasmy Chain isn't live yet. So it's kind of it's like the cart's ahead of the horse on some of these partnerships, and I don't know if they truly resonate. But they talk about the need to partner, the need to develop, and take on the project from there, right? Lil Bidman posted this. The Jasmy's now provided over 60 pages detailing Secure PC DR drive recorder in PDF format. Take a look. And so this was all done a couple days back. Let me see if I can get this to load. Here it is. So we got Jasmy Secure PC DR. Like you said, I mean, we've got a lot of pages on this that kind of break it down. Some of it's in English, some of it's in Japanese, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is there's tons and tons of information here that is documented in this booklet. And at the same time, on the regular Jasmy web page, the main page, they did also add a whole section for Secure PC in a way that they've never done before. So that tells me they're really starting to target Secure PC, right? All right, moving on up from there. This was funny. If you know who BitBoy is, I usually don't ever talk about other influencers on this channel, but this guy has been sort of comedic and kind of out there for a really long time. And anyway, he's kind of just gone off the deep end on a bender. I did post about it because some of these videos that people did in the follow-up are just hilarious. They're so funny. There's a rap with Trump. Somebody's playing the music to Bad Boys from the Cops TV show. This one, it kind of rebuts his story on what's happening. And so anyway, it's a dumpster fire train wreck, and it's very entertaining. I'll give it that. Very entertaining. If you want to check it out, do so. If you're taking financial advice from that guy, yikes. All right. Anyways, moving on. Dip Metaverse, circulating supply update, 40 million coins added. This was September 26th, so just 3 days ago, up to 97.88%. Dip Metaverse, Brian, Icy Amphibian, JB, they all did a call on Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday was their call. I could not attend their call, but I did listen to it later. A lot of good tidbits and nuggets, as always. Dip tends to do a lot of really good research. I really enjoy the parts that are like, who's Hara following now? It is kind of eye-opening, when you see some of that stuff. I mean, he really digs into this stuff. Brian, as always, did a great job. Icy Amphibian, finally back. If you don't know, Icy is like a marine engineer, and he travels all over the world, and he's finally back. And everything that he says is very technical in terms of how the Jasmy chain works with, I think he refers to as optimism and their OP stack. This is all kind of, tech jargon, but the point is that everything he said was basically confirmed by Hara last night in terms of exactly how Jasmy chain will work. So if you ever have any questions about the technicalities of it, Icy Amphibian, quite an expert, right? Here's a statement I'm just going to go ahead and make right now because it's true. I said, if there's anything I'm learning in my 40s, and I am 41, right? It's the realization that my convictions are by and large correct. And, what I meant by that when I was saying that is I think a lot of people live their lives and you never really know where you stand on certain things. And sometimes you're like, did I get that right? Am I wrong? Is there more that I needed to consider there? How could I have played this better? Things like that, right? But the interesting thing is that in my life, anyhow, I had a stroke earlier this year, which still, recovering from that. Doing great, by the way, overall. But it really kind of has opened up my eyes a little bit more towards a lot of the things that I've thought for quite a long time have been spot on. All right. And it's just kind of as time goes on, things get exposed and I go, okay. And, like a good example of one of these would be like Jasmy in the Innovation Zone. There's something weird there. All right. It doesn't make any sense. CZ's never commented on it. Even when I've tried to like egg him on, a little bit, like I made a comment the other day to him that, he commented about the Japanese stable coins going into the market. And I said, well, you may as well put them all in the innovation zone, So there's something happening there. And I don't know what it is, but there's something going on. So whether it's legal or not, TBD, there's not a lot of laws around crypto. This is the Wild West of investing, but something's odd there. So anyhow, going on. Finally, the ambassador call, right? The ambassador call was scheduled for last night, and I reposted it. That's right up here. If you want to listen to it at all, the call, I think, went, about 45 minutes, 46 minutes. Not too long at all. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on that in just a second. Something else here that I also wanted to touch on was the survey that was posted. So Crypto Gizmo posted this, and Lil Bidman had reposted it. That essentially there was a survey that Jasmy took that Kakanuma, again from earlier, right? He posted this in the Japanese, the PR Times, I think is the publication. And it basically is a survey of workers, right? And it talks about, security and things like that. And basically one of the findings here was that the three major challenges in implementing company-wide security measures are lack of security personnel. That's absolutely true. It's hard to get the right people. It's hard to keep the right people. It's hard to train the right people. It's really hard to retain people, right? Low security awareness. There's a lot of people that have no idea that, when they're on their work computer and now they're clicking around on Instagram, They might have done something that they're in their work computer and they're clicking in their personal email at, Hotmail or Yahoo or something. Now they've gotten a virus in there. There's lots of ways for bad actors to get into a company computer, right? And lastly, a lack of budget, right? That's a big one too. Companies, this is one of these things that you need to mitigate, and you need to try to prepare for any oncoming loss, any incoming ransomware. But a lot of companies don't really do that. And oddly enough, it's not just the big ones that get infiltrated with ransomware. It's local mom and pop companies. It's the school board. It's things like that get completely shut down. Payroll gets locked up. All the documents are frozen. The entire system is frozen until somebody pays a ransom, right? So, he had mentioned that, and I said, Jasmy solves this. And interestingly enough, I don't see the post here in my feed, but I think this is it right here. Little Bidman had posted this. That Sony, over here, all Sony systems reportedly breached by ransomware group. Now, if that isn't irony, I don't know what is, right? So we have Sony, who's very closely tied to Jasmy. And, a lot of people still say, oh, yeah, they're not partnered with Sony. Well, they're partnered with Sony Biz Networks, which is an offshoot of Sony. And it's part of Sony. It has Sony in the name, right? But to say that Sony, the, umbrella, is partnered with Jasmy is probably not true, right? And this is a great example of they should be, okay? This is basically like a decentralized secure storage solution is something that they need here that hackers can't get access to, yada, 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 right? Jasmy really does solve these problems. This is a business. Jasmy targets businesses. This would make a ton of sense for Sony to work with Jasmy to help secure their data, And even if they didn't want to do it with like the big global Sony, they could at the very least pilot it with the Japan Sony and take it off from there if it works and if it's proven to be helpful and to save them, right? So anyhow, this was a few days ago. I'm not sure where this ultimately has resolved, if it has or not. Yeah, they say right here, the group listed a date of September 28th as a post-date target, with report implying that if nobody purchases data by then, it may end up online. Great. So they're going to spill all your data online. Wonderful. Completely avoidable, right? I had a conversation like this recently with my wife about how the technology exists today for cars to auto stop before they rear end somebody or run into something, right? But that technology is not on every car. Why not? It's kind of like a seatbelt. Seatbelts, when they came out, were not in every car until it was finally mandated that every car had to have the seatbelt in it, and now they are, right? The same sort of logic applies to something like ransomware. If we have solutions that are out there that could solve this problem, a decentralized, a secure way, a way that makes financial sense for the company, right? Sony doesn't need to have some colossus of a cybersecurity team. Maybe they institute the software and then they simply have a team that oversees and reviews to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to. That's what they need to do, right? But ironically, they don't, right? So here's a perfect example of how they probably should be looking into something like Jasmy as a storage solution to secure data, as well as it could do other things. They could use it for secure PC for the remote workers. They could do all kinds of things here with Jasmy's personal data lockers, right? So anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. All right, going back over here. So I wanted to go ahead and scroll up, and it was funny too because right after I posted that, Hara went on and posted shortly thereafter. And I do know that Hara has followed all of us ambassadors, so that may have prompted that. Maybe not, regardless. So finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, right? The ambassador phone call last night. This is what we've all been waiting for, okay? I think all of us have just been sort of on the sidelines going, what next, right? I mean, I don't know if any of us have a clear view yet of what the ambassador program truly looks like. I don't know if they have a clear view yet. You know, the way I kind of see it in my head is probably not the way that they see it, right? I saw it as more of a, we meet as a group, we talk things over, you give us information, we disseminate it in a way that makes sense, we try to maximize value, yada, yada. So far, the team's been pretty quiet. However, there are some ambassadors that are already in Asia that are pretty heavily involved. This call we did last night, there was no call ahead of time with just us. There was nothing like that. It was just as a group, and then they let us ask questions, which was cool, right? I did like that. So how this program ultimately unfolds is still maybe a little bit up in the air. And I don't know if they know 100% because, you know, just offhand, I'm 41. I'm pretty sure Hara's like 35 or 36. You know, Brian is 41, 42. Tycho is 41, I think. All of us are kind of, you know, mostly around that age. Some of the guys are a little bit younger. But, you know, I do know that we have probably some different insights that maybe Hara may not even have. Where it goes from here in terms of development to be determined, but hopefully we can build that up a little bit more. Right now, when we wrapped up the call, as I said, it was the middle of the night. I had 3 hours of sleep, woke up, did the call, posted about it, went back to bed for another 3 hours. So hopefully these posts made some sense. You know, the funny thing on the call, and I'm just going to bring this up because, you know, if you've never heard of Moonlight, Moonlight's the host. Call number one, she thought I was a woman. She referred to me as she multiple times. I don't know if she was surprised when it was like, you know, a 41-year-old man started talking. But yesterday I was referred to as Fur Finance, F-U-R, Fur Finance. I told one of the guys that that's my pimp and alter ego where I wear fur boots and I have a fedora feather hat. So I even tried to correct her, and she still referred to me as Fur Finance after that. So I don't know. In her profile image, it's like her with like rabbit ears or something. Maybe that's just on her mind. I don't know. But anyway, I digress, right? So post number one, here we go. Regarding Jasmy chain and a native token, right? This was the topic of the last video. So Hara confirmed on today's call that in order to use Jasmy for utility, this is exactly what I talked about in that video, it would need to be bridged from Ethereum to Jasmy chain. The reason why is the gas fees, right? This is the number one reason. So this is the problem with Ethereum. So Ethereum's great because it has a wide market share and it's easy to start on. That's what it's good at. What it's bad at is that it's expensive and it can't scale. Okay, this is why they keep trying to update Ethereum and change Ethereum, etc. TBD if they can ever ultimately pull this off, because it's kind of like, it's like taking your car engine from like your 1993 car and saying, I'm going to turn it into an engine in a 2023 car. We got quite a few years difference. A lot's happened. Parts are different. Good luck with that. And that's kind of where Ethereum's at, right? So what ultimately happens with a lot of projects that start on Ethereum is they ultimately hit this crossroads where they say, all right, well, do I stay here where it's really expensive and I can't scale, or do I start my own chain where I can bring the cost significantly down and I can scale the number of transactions to improve them substantially? And in the case of Jasmy, they had to do that because of the partnership with Transcosmos, massive, massive company. We can't have expensive transactions and we can't have a finite small number. We need a very large number of transactions. Remember, the bread and butter of Jasmy is business to business, okay? So that is what's kind of preempted all of this and steered it in this direction, right? Now, the catch is that Hara said you can leave it where it is on Ethereum or move it if you want to participate in the ecosystem, which is the new Jasmy chain. And I said, if you moved it, it would be moved one-to-one. So there's a lot of questions that come up with this. I'm not really sure why, so I'm going to give you an analogy. If you're in your car and you're driving up to a bridge, okay, you then go over the bridge, you're on the other side. Are there now two cars? No, there is one car. There is not the car before the bridge plus the car after the bridge. It's not how it works. The car moves over the bridge. It's 1-to-1. There aren't two cars. Okay, that's kind of how you have to look at this in terms of coins. That coins, who are right now on Ethereum, finite transactions, expensive. Okay, they have no utility value at all. None. Zero. If you were to bridge them over to the Jasmy chain, that's where you get all of your utility, right? Because the Jasmy chain is going to have the Jasmy super wallet. That's where you can put your coins in there, be in the super wallet, and you can contribute and be part of the ecosystem. All the different ways that you could contribute in there to be determined, right? We still have not seen the super wallet yet. But this is why I have been predicting the super wallet for years. And this is why I think there will be a native Jasmy. Now, for anybody who's holding their coins in cold storage, right? So these are the Ethereum coins with no utility value. Could you leave them there? Sure. Of course you can, right? But if you leave them there, there's no utility value. All right. So if they offer something on their site of locking up coins, of being able to earn extra by participating, in governance or whatever you're going to do there, secure the network, you can't do any of those things. Okay. You could simply just hold them and leave them. Usually the way this works is when you look at something like an example of this is like Trias, TRIAS, right? It has started on Ethereum, then it started its own chain. If you look it up in CoinMarketCap, there is a chart for the old, there is a chart for the new. The supply is split between the two of them, all right? You don't just like double the supply. That's not what happens. So again, going back to the analogy of the car driving over the bridge, after it goes over the bridge, you don't have a car before the bridge and a car after the bridge, and you're in both of them. That's not how it works. You're in the car, you go over the bridge, now you have the car over the bridge, right? That's what I was trying to say here. And I will elaborate a little bit more on this, I think, in the second post. Let me see here. All right, moving up. Number 2, Jasmy chain symbolism. Oh, this is funny. So if you haven't seen what the Jasmy chain symbolism is, it is this logo here. Hopefully you can see this. Kind of looks like a half moon. It's blue, it's purple, it's maybe a little orange. It's sort of changing as it's going around. It's a little bit bigger on one side, a little bit smaller on the other. It's a crescent moon shape, all right? It is a moon. And Dip Metaverse brought this up on their call the other day. What the symbolism of the Jasmy chain was is it appears to be a crescent moon versus the orange gear that we're accustomed to, right? Hara's response was this, and this is interesting. Jasmy chain is essentially created by Jasmy Lab, okay? Now, Jasmy Lab is a separate company of Jasmy Corp Limited, right? So Jasmy Corp Limited, that's owned by Sato and Ando. Jasmy Lab, this is an offshoot company owned by Hara. This is where Hara is the CEO. Hara has a dual role in Jasmy Corp Limited, where he is the CFO. That's where he started. Okay? So I mentioned here, think of Sato also being in a high position with BJIT. It's true. They have a common goal, but work in multiple roles within different companies at the same time. Keiretsu. So the new logo is meant to symbolize, as Hara put it, and remember, Hara's learning English. So Japanese is his first language, but Hara-san is learning English, and he said more monetize. He said this multiple times, more monetize, right? Cheaper, far greater stability, right? And he even said to the moon. So that was awesome, right? Hara said to the moon. And so to give you a little bit more context, again, who else has done this, right? Ando did it. You know, he built up his resume at Sony. Then he started his own companies, multiple companies. Sato did it, same way. Yoshida, the exact same way. Basically, everybody in the Jasmy, Jasmy, that's exactly what they did. We recently talked about the PlayStation logo. That guy did the same thing, right? He started with Sony. Now he has his own company. The Mofiria partnership with him, the exact same thing. Started at Sony, built his own company. Hara started with KPMG, then goes to Jasmy. Now he also has his own company. He works in dual roles. And so the whole point here is the Keiretsu concept in Japan is basically where they have multiple companies trying to obtain the same goal together, right? That's really kind of unique. I mean, you don't really see that too much in the US unless it's like a parts supplier or something like that. But to have a tech company working with other tech companies for the goal of a certain advancement is really kind of an odd thing over here anyway in the West. So it's a really neat idea. And if you think about it, if they all have their bread and butter company, the Old Faithful, and then they have their own private company, you can kind of see how they can make advances, right? Even somebody like Ken Miura, who is their ambassador, not like us ambassadors, but ambassador of official Jasmy in Silicon Valley, he did the same thing as well. So there's multiple examples of it, and that's basically what Hara has said here, is that Jasmy Chain is a product of Jasmy Lab, okay? So think of it like this. It's like a third-party hired gun that Jasmy, the company, is using. That's what they've done throughout. They've always done that. And that's what they're doing again here. The only difference is it's Hara's company, right? Okay, post number 3, Jasmy Chain go live date. So Hara mentioned that the Jasmy Chain would either go live by the end of this year or January 2024. That was his exact quote. Pretty simple one there, right? I know everybody's been wondering about that one. Token lockup. This was a question that Jasmy US had asked, and it was basically this. Hara stated Japan's fourth quarter is considered to be March 2024. So this is essentially when the data exchange should go live and the process should start. Okay. Now, what nobody knows is how many coins are going to get locked up in the first day, in the first week, in the first month, in the first 6 months, first year. No one knows that, right? But could it be more than we think? Sure. Could it be less than we think? Sure. I don't really know what that number is yet. But the whole point is this is when the process should start. So I think for a lot of us in the West, we consider fourth quarter to be October, November, December, right? Not for them. So it's March. So that's kind of their fourth quarter. And, you know, I saw a comment too that said, you know, this is really moving the goalposts. And it's like, not really, man, because you're talking about a completely different country. I mean, this is, the interpretation is wrong if you're viewing it through a Western lens, right? This is Japan. Okay. All right. Post number 5, the business survey, right? So I wanted to ask about this. So business survey published 9/28 in JP Times. I asked if Hara could elaborate on the purpose of this, right? And I even said here, this is a rhetorical question on my part because I know exactly why they did it, but I kind of wanted to hear it from him, okay? So he confirmed this was a marketing effort to target businesses, as most are unaware of the survey results, and that Jasmy is a solution to security challenges faced by businesses of all sizes, from having adequate security to having security staff to protecting the data from ransomware exploits, and also just a better way to monitor teleworkers, right? Now, this was interesting too. He had also mentioned that 2 additional companies had been onboarded, including an insurance company. Wow. Like I didn't see that one coming. That was completely out of left field. You know, there's little nuggets like that whenever we do these AMAs, which, by the way, I learned a funny thing from Dip Metaverse on this call, that the adult word for AMA is interview. AMA is such a cryptocurrency term, you know, and ask me anything event. Well, it's really just an interview. That's the adult term, interview. But anyhow, we always learn in these AMAs these a couple extra nuggets, and this was one of those that really kind of came out of nowhere. An insurance company. Interesting, right? Moving on up. I did post this one also. That regarding stablecoins, I didn't get a chance to ask about new regulations involving Japanese stablecoins and how financial institutions will be able to apply and, if approved, create stablecoins that are backed by fiat one-to-one. So my question is this role only for Jasmy Labs? Remember, that's Hara's separate company. Or will Jasmy Lab issue stablecoins, Jasmy Lab issued stablecoins, play a role in the Jasmy chain ecosystem? I said, I imagine they will, right? This is kind of like where the whole DD points thing comes in, the JPYC stablecoin. The way these regulations are in Japan is really unique. And it's basically that a, quote, financial institution can apply, and if they are approved, they can issue their own stablecoin. The point of a stablecoin is basically to be able to transfer money more efficiently at a again, think of Ethereum versus Jasmy chain. More transactions, lower cost. That's the whole point. Scalability, increase the throughput. That's what they're going for here. And with the stable coins, we didn't get to ask this question, but I kind of get the impression that Jasmy Lab, if approved, could possibly issue their own stable coins. They could run on the Jasmy chain, or they could even issue stable coins outside of that, right? That would be completely unrelated. Now, the catch is for those stable coins that they have to be backed by fiat one-to-one, right? This is Tether's problem. It's incapable of a third-party audit because it's not backed one-to-one, right? They say they are with, I think their term is something like it's like transactional paper or something ridiculous like that. But something like a USDC that is backed one-to-one, other coins that are backed one-to-one. This is what it would look like in Japan. And I think the amount was somewhere, I think I heard JB say on the call the other day, something like 700,000 was all you needed to issue stable coins. Okay. So if you had 700,000, you could issue up to 700,000 in stable coins. To be determined where that goes from here. So we need some further clarification on that one. All right. I also wanted to post this that I realized after all my other posts, I realized this morning. I forgot to mention that Hara stated that through Token 2049, this was the really big conference just happened in Singapore, and through their efforts in South Korea, that they were networking in the Asia region and working on more partnerships for Jasmy Chain, right? So all of that's been going on, and all of that is good stuff. So that's what I've got for today's update. Don't really have anything else further from there. I'll be trying to make some more videos here as I have time available. Hopefully that answered some of your questions. If you got specific questions you want me to ask on the Ambassador front, I'd be happy to do so. Hopefully we'll have more time on the next Ambassador call. I don't know when that'll be yet. If it'll be in a couple weeks, a month, I don't know. I don't know what the schedule is. Haven't seen one. I also don't know yet if we're going to be meeting like as a group privately and then sending things out. There's been no talk of that whatsoever. So maybe not. Maybe this is what the Ambassador program looks like. I don't know. But either way, I try to answer your questions in a way that makes sense. And in the meantime, something else is the wider market. We're coming up on the halving next year for Bitcoin, which is traditionally very bullish. But this market, basically, none of it makes any sense. I've seen a lot of posts about this recently that there's super bearish news. There's some news that's just kind of flies in the face of it. It's almost like the market today is being artificially propped up. And I can think of an example of being the real estate market, that you have all these really large players that have entered it, the BlackRocks, et cetera, bought up all these properties, and they've sort of artificially kept home values high. If this was 2008, the property of the real estate market would have already crashed, right? But the values have stayed high. So who's getting hurt? Well, it's the real estate agents. It's the real estate brokers. It's the mortgage broker. It's the home inspector. These people are getting killed right now because no one's buying anything, but the prices are staying high. So then the question is, well, how long can the prices stay high before the market corrects, right? The market has to correct. Likewise, you look at all of the debt that the U.S. government has taken on. It's insane. It's just the amount of debt is just absolutely crazy, and it's like a runaway freight train. And so, how do you pay for debt when you don't have any money? When you're in debt, right? Well, we print more money. Well, when we print more money, our money is worth less, right? And then it continues this vicious cycle where costs continue to rise. The cost of a mortgage today versus a couple years ago is significant. Same thing with a car, same thing with toilet paper, same thing with pretty much anything. The costs have gone way beyond the incomes, and the only people who have had their incomes increase is kind of that entry level, lower level worker, right? Everybody in the middle is just sort of stuck, so something has to give at some point. And, I heard Brian saying on the call the other day about, next year is kind of, he's been reading a lot of info that's primed for a crash and a reset. And that could be, right? And so ultimately, the Bitcoin cycle, is it impervious of what's going on in global markets? Not at all. When you think about it, technically, should it be? Maybe, probably, could be, right? But is it? No. It is historically, at least the last couple of years, really followed the traditional markets almost to a T. So when they're down, Bitcoin's down. When they're up, Bitcoin's up. If that holds true, and we do have a market correction, then it's possible Bitcoin could correct even with the halving, which just seems insane, right? So again, it's kind of, I've seen Plan B post the image of, it's like holding the beach ball underwater. Eventually it's going to pop up. And could it be that this cycle is just interfered with? Maybe. I mean, there's been a lot of side things that have happened and whatnot. So we know what it should do historically based on the last 3 cycles. However, will it do that is still up for debate, because there's a lot of conflicting information in the market that says we should crash, we should have a recession, things should reset. And we're sort of artificially propping them up so they don't. So the question then, to me, kind of comes down to time, right? So is it just going to take longer to have that reset? Or do we just sort of stave it off and we get around it? We don't have the reset. I don't know, right? To be determined. But what I do know is that the opportunity is always when things are down and they're in the dumps. I can remember very vividly back to 2008 when Warren Buffett was buying all kinds of crap when everyone else was broke. And then, 5-10 years later, he's looking like a genius, right? He just took advantage of an opportunity. That's all it was. And so could this be an opportunity for all of us here in crypto? Definitely. Might it not work out and just the whole cycle is thrown off? Maybe. No one knows the future exactly, unless you're a time traveler coming back and and you're one of these trolls, in the comment space. Maybe all right? Maybe you do, but most people don't. So anyway, where that leaves us is that, some people have asked me about Jasmy, and do I still think, $1 or $17 or 25 cents or 50 cents? It just depends. It depends on how high our baseline can get before the halving. So this is where the market maker comes in. So they're really important, actually. If they can build up our baseline ahead of time, then I think that's the further we can run, which would go a long way. But at the same time, I mean, Jasmy has always been very surprising in terms of companies they're onboarding. Like I said, Transcosmos, that one's been a bit of a head scratcher to me from day one, how a company that big partners with a startup. And so could there be more things like that? This reference to an insurance company. Could there be a significant lockup? How many coins they have to lock up? No idea. I don't know. What's the value of the lockup, right? I don't know. That's where the data exchange comes in. They have to create a market to determine the amounts. But they think they can drive up the average revenue per user substantially over where it is, right? That was one of their things that sold me originally that was in the white paper. I want to say they said they could go to 500, and at the time it was like 40, right? So you're telling me that you can up this thing like 13x over where it is based on what Facebook and Google and these companies are doing, and they're saying, yeah. So bold claims, obviously you have to back up bold claims with real information. But so far, I mean, they keep on working as the company. I think Hara keeps on working as sort of the blockchain side of it. You know, again, he's got two hats here, right? So the question is, which hat is Hara wearing when he's talking to you? Is he wearing the Jasmy Labs hat because that's his company, or is he wearing the Jasmy Corp Limited hat, right? So to be determined. But anyway, that's it for today's video. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you enjoy it. Glad to be back. I will hopefully see you again soon. I'll be posting some other videos on some different things as I have time. As I said, I've just been really busy lately. A lot going on. But wanted to get this one out there. I know everybody's been looking to hear from me, especially as an ambassador and kind of somebody who's been in this thing a long time. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody out there, and hopefully you enjoyed it. All right. So if you don't follow me yet, check me out on Twitter, KIR Finance, KIR FI, or as Moonlight calls me, Fur Finance. You can find me here on Twitter and follow me if you'd like. You can also, I have a website with a financial blog. Just got some random things posted in there. Haven't posted in there in a little while. I'm probably due for a new blog post. Got to get to that as well. But you can check me out there. No word yet on our next Jasmy call. To be determined when we'll do that. Usually we just need to have a lot of information to put one of those out there. So maybe we'll do one of those shortly. Obviously, Dip Metaverse has been doing his Wednesday calls, which are very helpful, as well as continuing to track the supply. And I would just say, anybody who I've kind of highlighted or showed on here, the other ambassadors, Hara, if you're on Twitter, follow all of them. There's always something to learn, right? So with that, I will catch you on the next one. And like I said, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.